Hey everybody, this is Suze from Revelation Quilts. I have a new project for you. I just love it. It's the cutest baby quilt. I've called it Circus. And I think you'll love it. It's super easy to make. There's just some cutting and some sewing. And it takes 2 charm packs. I've used ombre charm packs, but you can use any coordinated charm packs and it would look adorable. I put a 2.5-inch border around the edge, and so follow along with me and we can make it together, and I hope you love it as much as I do. Have fun! So this is what the blocks looks like, and they're really quite simple. So let me show you how to make it. The first thing we're going to do, well, first of all, I'm going to use this charm pack that I got, and it's called Ombre Wash Art Cool. And it is very cool because it's got this ombre fabric in here. So that's what I've decided to make mine out of. It's got lots of great colors in here. As you can see, it goes from purples to browns to blues, and then there's some greens at the bottom. It's really cool. So that's what I'm going to use it out of. So the first thing we'll need is we will need 3, we'll need 3 different blocks, or 3 different 5-inch squares. And I'm going to start with these 3. And I'm going to arrange mine so that all my ombres go one way. So from dark to light, from dark to light. And I'm just going to stack my 2 charm packs, or my 2 charm squares, right on top of each other. And I am going to cut those in half. Now some, of course, as you know, charm packs, some of them have the pinked edges. And when I get those, I always like to measure, because sometimes the 5 inches measures at the ridges of the pinked edge, and sometimes the 5 inches measures at the valleys of the pinked edge. So I like to measure it really well, and if I put my ruler on the edge, I can see that my 5 inches actually measures in the valley of the pinked edge. So they're a little bit bigger than 5 inches, which is good, because I'd rather cut some off than have to add them. Some on. So that's a good thing. So I know that my 5 inches measures just in the valleys of the pinked edge. So what I'm going to do is I'm going to cut this in half. So I'm going to put my 2.5-inch line along the valleys of the pinked edge, and I'm just going to cut it in half like this. So now I've got 2 halves, and because I want my ombres all to go the same way, I'm going to arrange them like this. And these will actually make 2 different squares. It's so light, I didn't know if it was backwards or not, but it's not. So I'm going to arrange mine like this, and then you're just going to fold them over and you're going to sew along this line. And I'm going to do 2 of them because I know that I can get 2 blocks out of these. So let me go do that, and we'll be right back. Okay, so I've got my 2, and I'm actually going to just chain piece these. So we'll just go right down to make a 1/4-inch seam allowance. Here we go. As long as I got them here, I'm going to do the next one. Cut them apart. And then we'll go back and we will iron these. Okay, so I'm going to iron these open. And then I'm going to cut these into 1 1/4 inch strips. So I'm just going to line them up like this actually, so I can cut them both into 1 1/2 inch strips. I'm going to use my longer ruler so I can see what I'm doing. So 1 1/4. Put them in 2 separate piles there. Okay, so now I have 2 separate piles that are cut 1 1/4. Now I'm going to take another, and actually I'm going to take 2 more charm squares. I'm going to make sure they're going light to dark or dark to light on the ombre. And I am going to also cut these into 1 1/4 inch strips to 4 of them, because 5 divided by 4 is 1 1/4. So get my 1 1/4 line. There's 1. Oh, I missed it. Hate that when that happens. Get all confident and then find out it didn't cut. 2 and 3 and 4. So then what I'm going to do is I'm just going to take these and just put them in the middle like this. It's nice doing 2 at a time. Just makes it easier, I think. So here's what we've got. So what we're going to do then is we're just going to sew all of these together. And when I sew them together, this one I'm going to have all the seam allowances going one way, and then this one I'm going to have them going the opposite way, so that when we sew the blocks together, everything will nest and it will all be nice and flat. So I'm just going to pick these up like this, one at a time, and I'm going to take them over to the sewing machine. And there's one, and I'm going to do the same with this one. And all the blocks, the orientation of the blocks is all the same in this quilt. So let's take these over to the sewing machine and we will get them sewn together. So here we are at the sewing machine. I'm going to take the first one, and I've got them in the piles as I showed you. And we're just going to take the top one and the next one, and we're just going to put them right sides together. Now I usually match them up at the top. Let me adjust my camera for a second. There, that's better. Now I usually match them right up at the top so that as we go along, the center seam will end up straight throughout the whole block. So I'm just going to sew these first two together, 1/4 inch seam as usual. Now this one I am going to finger press them all to the right. So I just do that as I go along. That way it just kind of maintains this nice, straight, neat patchwork. And we'll take the next one that's in line, and then we're just going to turn it over and sew it on down the line. And again, I start at the top so that the top is nice and even. And we're going to sew that one on. And I'm going to open it up and finger press that to the right. Grab the next one. Get it nice and even with the top. That way these seam lines, right here and right here, they're going to match up. They're going to match up all the way down so that when we go to trim it, we'll have a nice straight line to cut by, or to measure it by when we cut it. Here we go. So all of these are finger pressed to the right. As you can see, I'm going to go back and iron that. And then we're going to do the next one. And this one, we're going to finger press everything to the left so that when we put them together, they will match up really nicely and nest together. So same exact thing. I'm going to keep them even up at the top. And as soon as I get this one sewn together, we'll go back and we'll trim them up. And then we'll show you how they go together. So I'm going to finger press this one going that way. So that seam is going towards the bottom. Last one. It's nice doing 2 blocks at a time though, because that way you can remember which way to make your seam allowance go. Because you know if you did that one way, then you can do this one the opposite way. Okay. So there we are, we've got our 2. And on this one, the seam allowance is going up. On this one, the seam allowance is coming down. So we're going to take these over and iron them and trim them. And then I'll show you how it's all put together. So here's our 2 blocks. I'm going to iron them and making sure I iron the seam allowance in the correct direction. So I'm just going to run my iron over it like this so it's nice and flat. And then the other one going that way. Little bit of steam. Now when we trim these up, we want them to trim up to be measured 6 inches by 2 inches. So what I'm going to do is I'm just going to take my ruler and this center seam line, I'm going to put my, I'm sorry, I lied. It's 4 inches by 6 inches. So what we're going to do is we're going to put our 2-inch line right along that seam, and then you can measure the cross lines on some of these other seams so it's nice and straight. And just cut that off. Turn it over and do the exact same thing. Put your 2-inch line right on that center. And then of course your 4-inch line will be right here. Nice and straight. And then when we turn it to the side, this is our 6-inch length. So we're going to take our 3-inch line and put it on that center. This is the center seam right here. So we're going to take our 3-inch line and put it right on that center seam. And then trim off any excess. That lined up perfectly. Let's try this way. A little bit there. Okay, that one is done. Let's do this one. 2-inch line in the middle. A 3-inch line in the middle. So there you have it. There's our block. And they're going to go together like this so that when you sew them together, your seams are going the opposite direction. So they'll be able to nest very nicely when you go and sew them together. Like so. I don't know if you can see this. So when you nest them together, they just nest together perfectly. I just love it when things work out well. Okay. So that's the tutorial. That's how it's done. So let's take a look at all of these up on our wall. I'm using 2 charm packs for this. There's 40 blocks altogether, so I've got 8 across the top and 5 going up and down. I really love how the ombre fabrics look on this, and I'm super happy with this layout. So let's put the blocks together now. So in order to get started and to sew this together, I'm just going to take the top row, starting from the left, and I'm just going to take them over to my sewing machine. So here we go. I'm putting the top one, the one on the far left is always on the top. And then when I sew them together, I'll know that this is the top one. Okay, so here we go. Okay, so here's my first one, the one that was on the top, the left hand corner. So I'm just going to take the next one in line, and I know that I'm going to sew them all to the right. So I take the next one in line, and hopefully it's the opposite seam allowance. So these are going up and these are going down, so I know that will work well. And I'm just going to nest the first two together so that they match up nice. And then all the other ones should fall in line real easily. So we're just going to start sewing, and we're just going to go right down the line with our 1/4 inch seam allowance. So here we go. And just, that's not a race. So as I'm going, I'm just going to make sure that the seam allowances are all nesting up nicely. And then when you open them up, just press them, finger press them to one side. And so the first row, I'm going to finger press all of the seam allowances to the right. And then the second row, I'm going to press them all to the left so that then our rows will match up like they're supposed to. So I'm just going to go right down the line and do the next one. Now, if you find that you've pressed your seam allowances the wrong way as you go through them, it's okay, because you can just take them to the ironing board and press them the opposite way they go so that they do nest. So it's not really a big deal if you made a mistake and pressed your seam allowances the wrong way. So I'm going to get this first row done, and then I'm going to do all the rest of the rows and then sew the rows together, and I'll show you what it looks like when we are all done. We've got all the rows sewn, and then we've got all the rows sewn together. So this quilt, as it is, if you don't put any borders on it or anything, it measures 28 by 28, which is very, very small. So I am going to add borders on it because I do want this to be a baby quilt, but I do want it to be a little bigger. So I'm going to find me some fabric that matches, and I'm going to add some borders.
So I decided to put this lavender border around. It's 2.5 inches. And I really just decided that that's the only border that I need because it really ties everything together. It brings out the purple. So with the border, it ended up being 32 inches by 32 inches. And I can't wait for some sweet little baby to give this to. I'm really excited about that. And so I really hope you enjoyed this tutorial. I hope that you make it for yourself, and I can't wait to see what you do with it. If you really enjoyed this video and if you want to see more, please subscribe to my channel and help to support my channel, and like this video, and I'd love to hear your comments. I'd love to know what you think. And so I look forward to doing the next one. I really enjoyed this one and I can't wait to do more. Thanks everybody. See you next time.